The one piece of advice that I really resonate with is don't forget your why. I would just encourage you to like just have that conversation and be like, hey, I love and appreciate what you did for me, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna
It's
walk the same path that
all
you did. I just wanted to have your support in that.
necessary with Tiffany Sage. Hello, world. I'm your host, Tiffany Sage. Thank you to coming to another episode of It's All Necessary. This is a space where we're reminded every life experience, whether big or small, it's only for our growth. And so it's all necessary. Please like, subscribe, leave your comments in the feedback section because I want to hear from you. And so, without further ado, I would love to introduce my special guest, Bianca Gracie.
Here I am.
Bianca is the editor in chief of Edition by Modern Luxury. Her words have been featured in Vulture, Harper's Bazaar, The Recording Academy, Complex, Spin, and Paper, amongst others. Bianca, welcome, my girl,
Etc. etc.
etc., etc.
Thank you so much for
Oh
having me.
my gosh.
I'm so excited.
I'm super excited to jump into this conversation because I feel we're going to be attacking it from so many different angles: culture, work and lifestyle, what keeps you motivated, what keeps you, going. So, let's jump into it.
Mhm. Yeah, let's do it.
Childhood. So, what would you say is your fondest childhood memory and why does it still resonate with you to this day?
Yeah, so when I know you sent me like initial questions just to like prepare myself, and
Mhm.
I am like notorious for having the worst memory. Um, so I was really trying to think back on like good childhood memories, but I can't think back until like before like 10 years old.
Yeah.
But one memory that just stands out to me, so for everyone listening, I was born and raised in the Bronx. And I grew up with my grandparents. And
Okay.
I always remember, um, as soon as, the weather got warm, like in the summertime, we would
Mhm.
always go to City Island. And
Oh.
that I just think it's partly because I'm a big foodie
Mhm.
and I just
Same.
love, I'm very close with my family. Yeah. So it's like every time I go to City Island, even now as an adult, I always think back on, me like running away from the seagulls or like
Mhm. Mhm.
eating, the fried shrimp at like Tony or Johnny's, like anyone from the Bronx, that's like the best spot to get seafood. I just think it resonates with me because I am close with my family,
Mhm.
and it just like brings back memories of like bliss and not having
Mm.
to worry about the adulthood.
Right. Everything that
Can I
comes with.
curse on this podcast?
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so like any of the fuckery that we deal with as an adult, like that, me thinking back to that time, it just like dissipates all
Yeah.
the stress.
I'm feeling that, and I definitely feel with my childhood as well. Great, thankfully and gratefully that it was just as you said, bliss. I know for me, I would be riding on my bicycle with my brother or building snowmen in Maryland, or even visiting Jamaica during the summers, all that good stuff.
Mm,
What would you say,
nice,
or
I
how would
love
you
it.
say your parents would describe you when you were a child?
Yeah, so I am the eldest daughter and I'm the first grandchild. So there were a lot of pressures on me because I
Yeah.
was the first, so I felt like I had to be like, the model kid.
Mm-hmm.
But my parents, I was at their house over the last weekend, and we're always discussing, us as kids, and they
Yeah.
always say that I was super quiet.
Wow.
And I was like very shy, but that
Mm-hmm.
shyness was dissipated like once I heard music. So like anytime we had like family parties, barbecues, like and once like reggae started playing, I started dancing and like that like
Wow.
broke me out of my
I was
shell.
gonna say you broke out from them.
Yeah, yeah. So Exactly. I broke up from a long time. So music really like really broke that shell. But
Yeah,
overall I was very quiet. I love reading, so I was super studious.
same.
Yeah, just really just kept to myself.
I love that. During the middle school, high school period of your childhood, aside from music, what would you say captivated your attention? Where it's like,
Mm,
when I'm doing this particular thing, I'm just nothing else matters.
mm. Yeah. So it's so funny to think about it. Writing actually captivated my attention. I started writing poetry in fifth or sixth grade.
Wow.
Like
Hmm.
I originally started writing songs actually. So like in elementary school, I like made my own girl group. I was inspired by Destiny's Child and
Uh huh.
TLC. You know, that was like the heydays of, 90s R&B and pop. And I like formed a girl group in school and I wrote songs and we used to perform them during recess.
That's
And
crazy.
then yeah, it's so wild to think like I've been writing for my
Wow.
whole life without even realizing it. So the songs translated to poetry, like it developed into
Hmm.
poetry in middle school and high school specifically. So if it wasn't music, like just like listening to music and engaging, writing
Yeah.
and journaling, that was like my main thing. And reading too. I love to
Hmm.
read. My head to this day, my head is always in a book.
Wow. So I was gonna, I'm so excited. I feel like I'm speaking to another version of myself, really, because it's like, oh, like where are you,
Oh, I
like the
love
kind of books you're into. I know I'm a memoir geek, and when it comes to
it.
documentaries, like I think what it is for me, not to jump all over the place, but with documentaries, I love seeing how life connects, like dot by dot for, and then I love to see how it happens for each person. So, wow. Um, what was the next one? And then my next question is, in your childhood, were there any role models of
Mhm.
such that you were like, I don't know what it is, or maybe you do know what it is about that particular person. Was there anyone that you said, I like how this person, moves or goes about their day?
Yeah. So growing up, I wouldn't say I had role models. Like, of course, like my mom. She became my role model later in life when I became an adult and understood, the sacrifices that she made. But I feel like when I was younger, I didn't really have that like go-to person. I
Yeah.
would say I had more of like a support system. Like people who I would look to for either advice
Mm-hmm.
or just like a shoulder to lean on. And those are some of my teachers in high school. So my guidance counselor, Mrs. Ngali, shout out to Mrs. Z. She was like my biggest supporter.
Yeah.
And she really like nurtured my creativity and really helped me like break out of my shell and try out new things, whether it was like I said, I was such a nerd, so I would either
Mm-hmm.
be the student council president or model UN president or the stage manager for the musical, and like she would like guide me in all of those directions.
I love that.
So she was like the biggest person that, yeah, that I would say was maybe a role model figure that I may not have noticed at the time, but it was like
Mm-hmm.
a role model in the untraditional sense of
Yeah.
the word.
And support that part. Like, I feel aside
Yeah.
from having role models that were on the TV, say like the Oprah, the Michael Jordan, I feel too, and to your
Mm,
point, having a support system is just as, vital, because it's like you need that kind of encouragement to be like, okay, oh, I like, if an adult is saying to you, oh, I
exactly.
see that you enjoy writing, or I see you have a knack for music. Let's see how we can hone that, hone those skills, even if they don't do that themselves, the music and the writing.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel like now like I don't really look. I mean, there's people that I look up to, but I want to be like my own role
Mm-hmm.
model. Like I want to inspire myself. So I think that's why I try to maintain just having people encouraging me all around me so I could
Right.
be my best role model
Right.
self.
I love that. Let's move on
Mhm.
to top two. Since you did mention the books, what
Yeah.
are present day or
Yeah.
past? What are your top two books that really resonated with you, or it's like once you read it, it's like I've been carrying that book with me.
Yeah. So this is also an untraditional response. I feel like
Hmm.
that's just me in a
Yeah.
nutshell. So as I mentioned before, I've been writing poetry for years. So I discovered a poet named Anne Sexton in, was it eighth or ninth grade? And I bought a like her poetry book. It
Hmm.
was just like a collection of like her greatest, poems in her career. And that really changed my whole
Mm.
worldview on just writing and learning how to be vulnerable in writing.
Hmm.
So it's her poetry book as well as me discovering in 10th grade Nirvana and Kurt Cobain, the estate of Kurt Cobain, they made a like journal compilation. So like all
Hmm.
of his journals that he wrote throughout his career, and they put it in a book. It's actually like my
Wow.
bookshelf is behind me and it's in there.
Wow.
So I read both of those, Anne Sexton's poetries and then Kurt Cobain's journals. And that both of them, the reason why I chose them is because
Hmm.
I was, like I said, I was shy as a kid and I was also shy as a preteen and teenager. And, just dealing with, mental health issues
Hmm.
and just like trying to figure out like who I was at the
Yeah.
time. And those two books really served as like my like emotional guidance. And I
Mm.
really, really resonated with just their way of thinking, a poet and a tortured soul musician. Yeah,
Wow.
so those are my choices. Yeah.
Was it their writings, or like, I guess I don't say like scriptures, but like just what they were saying, did it make you feel like, oh wow, I'm not the only person going through this? Or
Hmm.
okay.
Definitely. Like I felt like I was seen, like because
Mm.
I wouldn't tell people what I was going through. So
Hmm.
I always used my diaries. I had multiple of them.
Same.
And that's how I spoke to myself. Yeah. So it's
Hmm.
like when I read those books, I was like, oh, like, you know, what there's this thing called depression. There's this thing called
Yeah.
anxiety. And it's like they're putting it in words that I didn't know what
Mm.
they meant, but it's like,
Hmm.
wow, there's actually people, really, famous figures of their time that I could relate to. So that was like eye opening.
Yeah. What would so I'm actually gonna save it because it's like I'm just like, oh, I want to jump to that and jump into that.
Mhm.
So still with the top
Yeah, yeah.
two, um, what would you say top two places that you've traveled to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm gonna say Jamaica.
Yeah.
So Jamaica's number one. Like I feel like it wouldn't be Bianca without me saying that. So I've
Hmm.
been going to Jamaica since I was my mom told me the other day, I think I was like 9 months, 8 months old.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
I've been going every single year since before I could speak. I learned how to walk in Jamaica. Like
Wow.
that it's my second home
Hmm.
and I just feel just so calm when I go there. I just
Mm.
feel like there's no stress, like just and I just feel so connected to my culture. I'm sure we're gonna dive
Yeah.
into it
Yeah.
more. But yeah, Jamaica is just like that's my whole heart. So that's number one, and then second is Paris. So I studied abroad in Paris my junior year of college.
Hmm.
And that was my first time going, and I just always had like a connection to Europe. Like every time, like my journals, that was mentioned before, they always had the Eiffel Tower on it. And like I didn't study French in high school. I studied Italian and Spanish, but
Okay.
I always was like, reading like French poetry and authors and just like there was just something about France that just really drew me.
Mm.
So when I got the chance to study abroad there, like, I remember it just felt like home. And I was really blessed to be able to go this year again.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually marked like a 10-year anniversary from me studying abroad to
Wow.
revisiting. I always believe in signs, like things happen for a
Same.
reason.
Same here. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I went on a work trip in July with Duce for to celebrate France's Bastille Day, is their
Mm-hmm.
Independence Day. And as soon as I stepped foot in Paris again, I was like,
Mm.
nothing's changed. Like, of course, the city itself changed,
Mm-hmm.
developed
Mm-hmm.
and everything, but my sense of belonging there, it's like I
Yeah.
felt like I was a teenager again, like my early 20s, and just I don't know, it's just I think it reminds me so much of New York, just with,
I
the
agree.
similar
Yeah.
like architecture and buildings, and like I love art, and like there's just literally art everywhere you go, and it's just there's like a magic in that city that I love. And there's like a little bit of like I wouldn't say darkness, but it's just like a very
I know what you
gloomy
mean.
edginess that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
relate to. Yes, so it's like like I just felt like I if I could, I would move there for like a year or so
Well, let's
just to
put it
feel
out in the
that,
universe that that's going
yeah,
to
yeah,
happen for you. Speaking
yes,
of signs,
manifesting.
when I was rushing to get my cup of tea ready, I have my Paris cup.
Mm. Look
I
at
was like,
that.
wow, you
See?
see
The universe is listening.
that part. I know exactly what you're talking about when you say when you go to Jamaica, how it just feels like there's a calm and
Mm,
I guess like just feeling, I don't know. I remember specifically, I've always gone from when I was a baby, but there was a time when
mm,
I think it was 16, 17. My mom surprised me and she was like, I know you have a basketball tournament coming up, but your dad's going to be there in Jamaica. And I think you and your brother should go. And so I went. And at that age, I remember that was like the first time in a long time that I've been. And then when we got off
mm.
I forget what it's called, but like the stairs, when they put it down, we didn't go through like a terminal. We got on like the runway.
Okay.
And immediately it's like I felt like, I don't know if it was like my ancestors or something, but it just felt like welcome home. And so shout out
Mm,
to everyone out there if you're able to visit like your motherland, because I think especially
yeah.
living in America, it does give you a sense of pride. Like, I live here in America, but I know where my home is. And I know for me personally,
Exactly.
it helps me be a bit more bossy and prideful and, being sure of
Hmm.
myself, you know?
Yeah, I'm
Let's
this exact same way.
I love it. Let's see. Best two pieces of advice that you've been given or you've discovered within yourself.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't have the best memory. So I don't remember who told
Hmm.
me this. I just think it's just like something that's always stuck in my head. The one piece of advice that I really resonate with is don't forget your why. Um, because there's been plenty of times where I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, like
Yeah.
whether it's like my career or just personally. And it's just always a reminder for me to not forget why I love my passion and,
Mm.
my passion of writing and music. And, I can't, whatever situation I'm going through that's very
Hmm.
stressful, I always have to put in the forefront, um, my love and my passion and my compassion and just the reason why I'm doing this in the first place, so I
Yeah.
don't forget. Um, and then another piece of advice is like you don't have to be liked, you just have to be respected.
Mm.
Because I've been
Wow.
a people pleaser my entire life. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I want to do XYZ so that they will like me and they would accept me. And when people didn't like me, I would like question like why, like what's wrong with me, and like try to like mold myself to fit,
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever frame or box that they were thinking of. But the further I get in my career, I don't care who likes me. At this point, honestly, it's like I'm just here to do a job, and we just have to work together to
Mm.
to to reach a common goal. So I would prefer just to be respected, respected in my career, respected in my romantic relationships, respected in my friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me goes such a long way. Like respect goes, and it's always earned. Like you have to earn that respect. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
those are two bits of advice that like really, really stick with me.
That is resonating with me, especially. I
Mm,
mean, I don't want to make it be dramatic and blow up this whole thing, but this morning I
mm.
was playing tennis
Oh, I'm
and
very dramatic. Yeah.
okay. The there was a guy, so it was me and my brother playing, and then I noticed that the guy next to us on the court, he was leaving, and so I told my brother, pause so the guy can walk across. So I said to him, to the guy, was like, "Oh, are you leaving this way?" And like the stare that he gave me just to me felt like, why are you even talking to me? And then he was
Mm,
like, I'm going this way. And for a split second, I felt like bothered. But as you just said, it's the why. So even just like in this little small moment, I was like applying what you said to earlier this morning. And it's like, you know what? I don't have to
mm,
be, he doesn't have to like me, but he's going to respect that I'm on this court. And then also to my
mm.
why is that I'm out here to work out, get a good workout, bonding time with my brother. So don't worry about, how it made you feel. But I want to thank you for that because it kind of just
Oh yeah.
made me feel like, better about that. Last
Oh,
question
I
of the
love that.
top two.
Mm.
Aside from writing and I guess listening to music, what would you say are your top two mental health practices?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you said not music or writing because that's
Mhm.
like literally my whole
Same.
life. But yeah, I was like, oh, like what the hell do I choose besides those two?
Hmm.
But I would say over the past like few years, I would say like working out has been a good mental health practice.
Hmm.
Just any form of movement, whether it be like just taking a walk when it's like, it's a beautiful day
Yeah.
outside today. So just like taking a walk or, you know, cycling, running, like strength
Hmm.
training, just like moving your body, and not having it be so still and tense.
Yeah, that's so
That's
true.
been like,
Wow.
yeah, it's been like a huge like relief for me. And just like because I have depression and anxiety, so like for me to really like shut down, like shut out the rest of the world and just like
Hmm.
focus on one thing,
Hmm.
focus on like go getting through this rep, focus on, running this 1 mile, like just having that be the focus and just like, letting all distractions fall to the wayside.
Hmm.
It really it just centers my mind in a like very positive way.
Yeah, I love that. Let's move on to work and lifestyle.
Hmm.
So, I don't
Okay.
want to say only entertainment, but specifically entertainment, I feel can be a
Mm,
very hard industry for anyone to break in through if you don't come from a family or
mhm,
you're best friends with someone in the industry. But how did you get your start in publication? And I kind of want to do a double question because you had
mm,
mentioned that you wrote songs when
mm.
you were younger. Did you ever try to pursue a career in music, or it was I like writing songs for this, middle school, high school era, but once you graduated high school, it's like I want to go full on into writing.
Yeah, yeah. So girl, I can't sing a lick. Like I was just writing songs just because I love music. Like
Hmm.
my father, he's a DJ. I have a lot of uncles and cousins who are DJs. So I just grew up around sound
Around it,
systems
yeah.
and vinyls and just like bass thumping. So it was just always in my blood.
Hmm.
But my friends who are listening, they're going to be like, Bianca, give yourself some credit. But I feel like I just fell into this industry. I know I worked hard and all that, but I just feel
Hmm.
like it just happened,
Hmm.
because didn't I didn't think to be a writer. Like it just happened. So my first passion was fashion, passion for fashion. I know that's so
Oh.
cliche, but it's the
Hmm.
truth. Yeah. So I remember just like getting like stacks of like Vogue, Teen Vogue, like 17 magazine when it was still around, Elle magazine, and thinking that I could, either be like in styling or merchandising. So and I think it's a thing with, millennial women
Mm-hmm.
because we grew up with films that showcase, like the really stylish fashion journalist and
True.
she's working at a
True.
publication. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even like like Carrie Bradshaw on Sex in the City or
Yeah.
like, 13 Going on 30 and like all of these films that showcase fashion. So that was my interest just because of what I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
So I began like my dive into fashion in high school because I did a fashion internship with a stylist my senior year of
Okay.
high school. And then in college, I was a president of the fashion club. Like I helped, like I put on like annual runway shows and like different events and all of that. And I did a fashion internship with a showroom
Mm-hmm.
in Manhattan. And that's where I learned like buying and merchandising. And like I styled backstage in Fashion Week. And even when I studied abroad in Paris, like I attended Fashion Week in Paris and like
Wow.
did reviews of the runway shows and, interviewing and all of that. So I thought fashion was going to be
Mm-hmm. It.
my career. And then I for so just to give some context, I went to
Mm-hmm.
Northeastern in Boston, and there is a 5-year program, so 4 years of school and then a year to do two internships. So my first internship was a fashion showroom, and the second one was at Idolater. It's a now defunct pop website
Mm-hmm.
that was under Spin Media, but that was my second internship, and that's all music. So um, it was just I just did it on a whim because I knew I love writing. Music was still a passion of mine, but I didn't think that it could be a career. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know it at the time, or music writing. So once I did that internship, I realized like music has always been my first love, but I didn't know that it could be a career until
Mm-hmm.
I did that internship. So after that, that's when kind of the roller coaster began,
Of life.
doing my work at Idolater. Yeah, and Idolater, then Fuse, Billboard, freelancing, and then now I'm editor in chief. So yeah, so that was like how I dove into it. But there was a second question. I feel like I didn't answer something.
Oh, let me see if I can remember. It was,
Mm.
oh, if you wanted to originally pursue a career in music. I think that's what it
Yeah, yeah. So
was.
yeah, I didn't
Okay.
originally want to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like I didn't want to. I didn't know that
Mm-hmm.
was an option until
Mm.
I did that second internship at a music outlet. I was like, oh, like this is something that I could actually
Yeah.
do. And now
Right.
I've been doing it. Next year will be 10 years that I've been doing this thing.
Wow. Congratulations. Because I feel like a lot of
Yeah,
people
thank
not
you.
only, sorry, go
Mm,
ahead.
I would say I'm gonna have to celebrate. I don't know what I'm gonna
Yeah.
do, but 10 years, that's a long
It
time.
is. What was I gonna say? With the music, with the second music internship that you did, would you say that was your springboard moment or career that opened the
Mm.
doors to other opportunities?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So after I finished that internship, I kept in touch with my supervisor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's still like we're still friends. Like we still email each other and text each other all the time. And I after I did that internship, I began freelancing for them.
Okay.
And then I just loved it so much that before I graduated, I was like, "Hey, I'm graduating soon. Like, I would love to know if there's like any position available." And thank Jesus, I always say thank Jesus, that I they had an opening for me. So I graduated May 20, yeah, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, that feels so long ago saying that. But
I
yeah, May
know.
2014. And then I started, yeah, it's crazy. And then I started my job as editorial assistant at Idolater in September 2014. So, and during
Wow.
that time, like all throughout college, I was working at Urban Outfitters.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like working at Urban Outfitters like after I graduated, I was like, oh, like I I don't want to be here the rest of my days. Like I hope
Yeah, yeah,
that, I
yeah.
get opportunity soon. And then yeah, like I went back to Urban Outfitters May 2014 after graduating in September 2014. That's when it all began for your
Wow.
girl.
Boom. Question. I don't
Yeah.
want to forget because you
Hmm.
said something earlier, so I want to remember that question. But pivoting to now being
Hmm.
the editor in chief at Modern, would you say that it felt like
Hmm.
it feels like a big shoe to fill, or would you say your past experiences prepared you for this role?
Um, it's a little bit of both because I feel like the goal was always to be an editor in chief, like
Okay.
subconsciously,
Okay.
because I feel like as writers, like I'm not saying all, but like most
Mm-hmm.
writers, they like that's like the pinnacle. Um, so I felt like it was time for me to
Mm-hmm.
have this position, and definitely my past experiences definitely led to this and
Mm-hmm.
really helped shape um what I consider to be an editor in chief. But at the same time, it is a huge responsibility because you're the face of a magazine, a new
Right.
magazine at that.
Right.
So, um, like I'm really responsible for shaping the voice.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I want to clarify, there was an editor in chief prior to me. So I started as managing editor in 2021, and then after the
Mm-hmm.
previous editor in chief left, I became the editor in chief in this past January. So it's almost coming up to a
Congratulations.
year. Yeah, thank you. So I think all of my previous roles and also my managing editor role at Edition really helped shape me into becoming editor in chief. So it felt like it was just the natural next
Yeah,
step to
progression.
take.
Earlier when you
For
said, I
sure.
think it was with the piece of advice when you said know your why, because sometimes you could be
Mhm.
like, what's going on? And then you have to, go back to know your
Yeah.
why and then get back in the game. With specifically
Mhm.
being an editor in chief, what would you say, or I guess being in the publication world, what were some
Mhm.
situations where you found yourself thinking like, like having to remind yourself what your why is? Was it like, I don't know, super
Yeah.
late nights and the compensation wasn't amazing, or the people you may have to
Mhm.
work with, or, too much on your plate?
All of the above.
Okay.
There's been plenty of times where I just wanted to quit. I was like, I can't do this shit
Mm,
anymore. Like I'm done. Especially when COVID happened and like in 2020 and I got laid
mm-hmm,
off from Billboard, I was like, fuck it. Like I need to like switch careers. Like I don't know what else to do, what
mm,
else to turn to.
mm-hmm.
And even before, and I spoke about this before, like even before I got laid off at Billboard, I was already experiencing burnout. So,
Oh, like too
like it was
many
just
stories to cover?
not, it was too many stories, that didn't compare with the amount that I was getting paid. So I
Okay.
felt like I was being overworked with
And being
little,
underpaid.
little
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to like, yeah, super underpaid. And I just felt like I could do so much more, but I felt hindered. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not any shame to Billboard. Like I'm still friends with so many people there. Like they
Mm-hmm.
all, when that the situation happened, the layoff, they all understood my my complaints and my issues when it
Yeah.
happened. So we've all moved on from that. But at the time, like I just felt like there was so much more that I can do and I wasn't given the opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Um so yeah, like when it came to burnout, even with this current job, I I try to like not work myself to the bone, but that's
Yeah.
just like I said, I have so much passion for what I do. So, yeah, just like the late hours, just maybe not getting along with certain people, not
Mm-hmm.
saying specifically this job, but just
Yeah.
like my career in general. Um, yeah, just like being underpaid. I feel like the 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 way that we as writers get treated is just so terrible. Like we get taken for granted
Mm.
and we don't get compensated for all the work that we do. So that will cause anybody and even people that I know personally just to call it quits.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so going back to my advice of like, don't forget your why. It's like I know, like I'm meant to have an impact
Mm-hmm.
in journalism and entertainment and pop culture, and like I'm just always aware of that. So having that in the back of my mind is like the fuel
Yeah.
that I use to like get through these
Yeah.
the
That
many rough times that
right,
I've
like
had.
that.
Yeah.
The battery in the back, like the or the what's it called, the
Yeah.
Energizer Bunny kind of thing.
Energizer bunny. Yep.
Right.
Hmm.
With the role of first being the managing, I think you said the managing
Managing
editor.
editor.
Yeah. How did
Yeah.
that opportunity come about? Was it just a simple apply, or it's like just reaching out to all your connects and, you know,
Yeah.
learning
Yeah.
what's out there?
Um. So the biggest what's the word I'm looking for? Like I would say the biggest thing that's gotten me through my career is just
Mm-hmm.
having a big network
Mm-hmm.
and keeping those connections. So um after the layoffs, like I was freelancing and everyone knew that I was looking for a job because I would like vocalize it on socials and like speak to people like in real life, be like, hey, I'm looking for XYZ.
Yeah.
And then my um, previous colleague at Billboard, she became digital director at Modern Luxury, and she emailed me um, letting me know that she recommended me for a position as managing editor
Mm-hmm.
for Edition. So I didn't get the job through applying. It was just through word of mouth and
Right.
having someone who I previously worked with at Billboard let me know of the opportunity. And that's how I've gotten even my job at Billboard. That's how I got that job because my when I was at Fuse, my previous boss at Fuse, he left to go back at Billboard. Shout out to Jason.
Mm-hmm.
And then he let me know of the job opportunity at Billboard, and that's how I was able to apply. So yeah,
To get in there, yeah.
keeping my network and my connections, that is so important to me. And I've been even, speaking with past interns and like just college students of just, who want to know more about this industry. And I always say like keeping those connections, like that could, you never know if it could lead you to your
Yeah.
next job.
And also shout out to you for being vocal and letting people know that you need help essentially, because I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes when I look back on my life in different scenarios, I don't know if I don't want to say if it's pride, but we'll say it's pride sometimes, or
Mhm.
just being extra vulnerable, that it's like, oh, Tiff, why didn't you like open your mouth and say, whatever, whatever. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think sometimes too, it's like, as you said, staying in touch, and I guess also being genuine with the, connections. And it's not just like I scratch your
exactly.
back, you scratch mine, but being vocal and letting people know like what's up.
It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. So take us in a day in the life of an editor in chief, when
Hmm.
I guess like when you're
Yeah.
interviewing people that are going to be featured in the magazine. Is it more in person, or is it a phone call? Are you taking out a recorder, and
Mhm.
how do you capture their
Yeah, yeah,
stories, and what does that look like for you?
yeah. So honestly, I haven't done an in-person interview in years, it feels like.
Really?
Because after the pandemic, like everyone wants to do Zoom. So I'm
Okay.
like,
Okay.
okay, that's
The new
what we're
norm.
doing now.
Hmm.
So it's the new normal. And honestly, I miss doing in-person interviews because you get to see, even though, sometimes if they want to be on camera, because usually 9 times out of 10, they don't want to be on camera. But if they are, you kind of get to see their personality. But in person is just, it's a even deeper connection. And that's what I miss. So
Hmm.
publicists, if you're listening, I want to do more in-person interviews. Like stop
Right.
sending me Zoom links. So but just for like an everyday routine, I would
Hmm.
say I I'm in constant contact with publicists, managers, agents, because we release 6 issues a year,
Okay.
and they're pretty hefty, like kind of coffee table style books. So I'm always thinking ahead of like who can be in the next issue. So I'm always emailing publicists, or they'll email me like pitching their clients.
Mhm.
So yeah, once I figure out, who I think would be a good fit for the particular issue, because each issue has a theme. So like our December issue that we're wrapping up right now, that's the arts issue, because
Mhm.
it's leading up to Art Basel. So in that issue, we're really focused on like visual arts and painters, sculptures, but also art in different mediums, whether it's music or fashion. So I will look for creators who fit, the certain themes, and then from there I'll do the standard Zoom interview or phoner. Um, but yeah, that's really how it goes. I remember
Okay.
pre-COVID, like I would always have like my recorder with me because I would do in-person interviews.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I said, I do miss it, but I don't. The Zoom is convenient,
Yeah.
but you don't
There's nothing
always
like that
get that.
real in person
Yeah,
vibe.
and just
Yeah.
like seeing like, their eyebrows furrow, or like them making
Mhm.
like a thinking face, or like there's certain personality traits that you could pick up in person interviews that you could add into your story that makes it more personable and
It's
more
true.
interesting to read. So yeah, that's why I love doing it. And just having that like human interaction is very
Mhm.
important.
How far out would you say that you guys plan ahead? Because obviously that's strategy, doing the art feature and leading up
Hmm.
to Art Basel. Is
Yeah,
it
yeah. Like
too,
three
oh,
like three
okay.
months ahead. Because we're actually going to start working on our March issue,
That's good.
and we're in November right now. So like at the end
Yeah.
of, like after Thanksgiving, yeah, so December, January, yeah, that's like almost like 3 months that we're looking ahead. Um, so yeah, like I have to like be super creative and like
Mm-hmm.
really think outside the box and have more evergreen ideas, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want the stories like once they're in the issue to be old news. So just
True.
thinking of like more like big picture ideas. There are some timely stories, just depending on, what the publicists or managers let me know of. If there's like a new book coming out, or a new
Mm-hmm.
um capsule collection that's going to be out at the time of the issue release, then that'll be more timely, but usually it's just more overarching evergreen stories.
Got it. Does it ever get lonely being an editor in chief? I will say, being a singer songwriter
Mm.
and, now being a podcast host. Well, I'm not going to lie, being a podcast host to me is really fun because it's like I love these stories and
Mm.
connecting. But I
Yeah.
will say, being a singer
Yeah,
songwriter,
me too. I
it can
used
get
to,
lonely.
yeah, I would say, I mean, I used to have a podcast as well when I was at Fuse.
Okay.
So for those, anyone who knows me knows I love like nostalgia,
Mm-hmm.
like Y2K, like late 90s. So I had my podcast at Fuse that was like centered around that. So that's why I love doing podcasts, because it just like takes me back to that time. Um, being lonely, I actually never thought of it. I would say in some ways yes, because not everyone understands your vision, or like what you're
Mm.
trying to put forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're constantly having to explain yourself or explain your ideas and fight for them as well.
Oof.
So that could, yeah, you kind of feel like you're in your own corner sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
But
yeah, in
isn't
a way,
it
I could see why you would say lonely. Mhm.
being an editor in
No,
chief?
go ahead.
Um, is it, I mean, I feel like I'm being literal where it's like you're the chief. Is it kind of like, as you said,
Mm,
you have an idea and then you pitch, and it's more of a, I'm letting you know what I would like and y'all gonna say yes? Or is it like, nope, even though I'm in this role, I
mm,
still have to pitch it and get a bunch of yeses for it to go through?
mm. Yeah, it's the latter.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, Edition is in partnership with Rock Nation. So I have
Mm-hmm.
to get green light from both Modern Luxury and Rock Nation. So
Okay.
um, I would say luckily my ideas are good enough that 9 times out of 10, everything you see in the issue is all from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have some, I do have a voice in that aspect. But it's not like an instant green light. Like I have to go
Okay.
through through some steps just to make sure we're all on the same page and that everything that I'm thinking of reflects both my vision, but also respects the voice of both Modern Luxury
Right.
and Rock Nation because it has to be it's reflecting them. So
Mm-hmm.
they have to also ensure that, it's nothing outside of their character or the representation.
Yeah. Thank you for your transparency in that, because I feel as I was reading
Mm,
through the magazine, and I was like, I would always look and see who it's
mm.
written by, and I'm like, dang, Bianca, dang, Bianca. And I'm like, dang, like she's
Yeah.
doing it. And so I like that transparency because,
Yeah.
one would think like, oh, once you're in that role, you're running it. And it's like, it's not so. But as you
Yeah.
said, I feel, and kudos to you, good ideas do stick and do get the green light. So,
Yeah, and I also want to clarify that each publication is different because
mm-hmm,
we are a smaller publication and also a baby because we just
mm-hmm,
launched in December 2021. Other like more established, like decades long publications, like they would have a bigger team and that editor in chief would do more delegating. But
mm-hmm,
because we're a smaller team, I have to be more hands on. So that's the reason why it feels it could be a little bit lonely and like
mm-hmm.
having those people that I have to call to get stuff green lighted. But if you think of like a Vogue or the New York Times, like really established publications, it's a bigger they have bigger what am I trying to say? Like it's like they don't have to be as their hands aren't in the pot as much. Like
Got
they
it.
kind of run the
Yeah,
show and they have other people to do like,
the
the
other
gritty
things.
work for them.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
mentioned burnout earlier. How would you say that you've been learning to strike balance slash harmony between your work life and your personal life?
I don't. But
Okay.
I'm I'm learning now because it's really I mean, I had burnout when I was at Billboard, but now it's been really affecting me where it's affecting my mental health.
Okay.
So I really had to take a step back and be like, this is not healthy what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning how to be more selfish with my time, and
So
saying
important.
no more often. Because like I said in the beginning, I'm a recovering people pleaser, I like to say. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning how to set my boundaries, and be like, hey, this is a great idea, but I can't get to it right now. Or, I got your
Mm,
email, but like give me a few days to respond. So learning how to be selfish and not having to, goes back to not needing to be liked.
yeah.
And just knowing
Energy
that I need to set time for
preservation.
myself. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, in order for me to do my job in the way that people want me to, I need to take breaks. And
Yeah.
there shouldn't be any question about that.
Yeah.
So I really have to put my foot down and be like, hey, I have to do this right now. Leave me the fuck alone for like two
Yeah, yeah,
days,
yeah, yeah.
and then I'll
Did
I'll get
you
back to you.
did you get
Yeah.
any pushback in the beginning? Because I'm thinking, if these set of people are used to the people pleasing Bianca, then this
Mm,
new Bianca that's like setting proper boundaries, if they kind of like
mm.
try to overstep it to be like, whatever, it's me,
Oh
you need
yeah,
to answer. Okay.
all the time, all the time, whether it be professionally or even my personal life. Like
Mm,
because I always adapted myself for other people, and now that I'm setting those boundaries, I get called mean or I could be a little aggressive, and it's like,
mm-hmm.
no, that's not it. I'm
Yeah.
just, just because I don't have like the upward vocal inflection and like putting like constant,
Mm.
exclamation points in my emails. Like that doesn't mean like
Right.
I'm not being mean. It's just
Yeah.
I'm setting a certain tone for myself so you understand where I'm coming from.
Get
So
with the
yeah, there's
program.
definitely been times where
Seriously.
like it's not being taken seriously because I acted a certain way and was people pleasing more, you know, a few years ago, but now it's like I
Mm-hmm.
understand certain things have to get done and they would only get done if I act a certain way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's been definitely like growing pains, I would say, for people
Mm-hmm.
to get in line with how with how I
Yeah.
am right now.
And I feel also too,
Mhm.
even though that saying about you can catch more flies with honey or whatever that saying is, I feel also
Honey
though
then
I've
vinegar.
seen,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel people pleasing,
Mm,
even though it's like people may not say, "Oh, you're mean because you're being nice," but I think people pleasers get stepped on, I feel. Because so it's like
all the
either
time.
you're gonna get stepped on by being nice or be mean and get shit done, you know? So it's like either
Yeah.
way,
I'd rather be mean.
yeah,
Yeah, and like look at, people in the C-suite, like they didn't get to that position in their businesses because they were nice. They had to get
exactly.
stuff done.
Exactly.
And I feel like it also is a challenge being both a woman and also
Mhm.
black.
Yeah.
So I get the double whammy of like, people think I need to be nice to them. But if I act that way, there's no way for me to progress in
Mhm.
my career. Like I can't be this like sweet sweet girl. Like we have stuff to get
Nothing's
done
gonna get
and it's not
done.
going to get done
Right.
if, yeah, exactly. Like if I want to be a boss, I have to act like a boss.
That part. I'm gonna
Mm.
add some applause in that section. So what advice would you give someone, say, fresh out of high school, and
Mm,
or fresh out of college, or even an older adult who is like, you know what, I got it. I want to go into writing. What steps would you tell them to take? And I guess if you can, in a snapshot, what does that hierarchy look like from intern to editor in chief?
mm. Yeah, yeah. So just based on like my personal career,
Mm-hmm.
I went from, intern to freelancer to editorial assistant, assistant editor, um, sorry, what was that? Then fashion editor, then managing editor, editor in chief, but also still
Mm,
freelancing in between.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely an ascension when it comes to that. And I would say my biggest advice is networking and
Okay.
maintaining those connections, maintaining genuine connections,
Yeah.
because the connections is the reason why I've been able to really grow my writing community, for people that I could lean on for either advice or references or just to talk and
Mm-hmm.
vent. So yeah, so not being afraid, if you have a good job opportunity and you get along well with your supervisor or even like your intern supervisor, like keep those connections because you really never know where they could lead you. It could be a
Yeah.
reference letter. They could help you look at your resume. They could say, hey, like, Bianca, like I just heard that, Teen Vogue is hiring for a new editor. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think you'd be good for this role. So it's like you just making sure that you have those connections. And then also another piece of advice is just like stay consistent.
Mm.
Even though writing is not gonna happen right away, especially
Yeah.
with the way that the industry is right now. It's low key crumbling before our very eyes, and it's really hard to
Is it
say that, but
because
it's
of
the reality of
AI?
it. It's because of AI. It is because of the job, well, not the job market, what is it, the economy just crumbling,
Mm-hmm.
and not having enough finances to support a big team. The CEOs, like the C-suite, they're getting too money hungry and not having that, like equal, like equitable disperse
Yeah.
between their entire company. So there's been like a bunch of like layoffs and just like magazine shuttering, and but it's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, just be consistent and know that, even though the journalism industry is in the state that it's in right now, that shouldn't like hinder you from wanting to do it.
Right.
Just, constantly write, whether it's, doing freelance work or just, maybe writing in your journal or just like making a blog website, doing a
Mm-hmm.
Substack like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of writers do, doing newsletters. Um, but yeah, just like maintaining that consistency, but also know that if writing, like writing doesn't always have to be your main career. You could do something
Mm,
another something else could be on your career, whether it be marketing
right.
or like
Right.
PR or whatever. And then you could also always write on the side just to maintain that hunger and that passion.
Right.
So yeah, like those are like the two pieces of advice that like really come to mind right now.
Got it. From what you can remember, and you can just pick one, what
Mhm.
was a time in
Okay.
your career that you felt like you wanted to quit?
Mhm. Yeah, it was getting laid off at Billboard. Like that was like
Oh,
I was
like
like
from then you wanted
I
to
tap
switch
out. Yeah,
industries.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I talk about it all the time. I was like, yeah, I this is probably a sign where I just need to like let this writing shit go.
Yeah.
Because at the time and this is also something that I want to tell people now because I made
Mm-hmm.
this mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I made Billboard my identity.
Ooh,
And it was
that's gonna be a
always,
big one.
Bianca from Billboard. Yeah, Bianca from Billboard, but not Bianca the journalist. And granted, like I love everything that I did at Billboard. Like I said, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still friends with a lot of people there. And that, company really helped me, you know, really craft my voice, and I'm so grateful
Mm-hmm.
for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was constantly associated with Billboard, and I knew I was so much more just like being a writer, being myself as a writer.
Yeah.
So once I got laid off, I was like, well, everyone knows me from being at Billboard. Like, what else is there to do? Like,
Mm.
I just thought that I was just supposed to be there and just like really foster my craft there.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I didn't really know where to turn. Um, and even before the layoffs, like I said, I mentioned I was also being burnt out. So that
Mm-hmm.
paired with the layoffs was just like an explosion of
Yeah.
emotions. Um, yeah, but it worked out in my favor because, and I always say it was like a blessing in disguise because after the layoffs happened, I began freelancing for companies that I either there's still music. There were those like dream publications and then also like fashion publications
Mm-hmm.
and like politics and like I wrote about like culinary arts and like just things and there's like regular like visual arts, so, like things that I didn't do at Billboard, I was able to really blossom and really explore different opportunities and different types of writing, which really boosted the writing that people knew me for, but also it made me even more diverse as a writer too when I began
Mm.
freelancing, after 2020. So I feel like it needed to happen, just like a wake up call, like, hey, like you could do, even though music is my number one, I always say music is what I love to write about, but
Mm-hmm.
I could also do so much more than that.
Yeah.
And having that experience freelancing for different outlets really helped. You asked me before, like what I love to do, like as editor in chief of Edition,
Mm-hmm.
like how I was able to, like how my different experiences led me to this job. It's because I was freelancing so much and doing different types of
Wow.
freelancing
Mm-hmm.
that now I'm editor in chief of a magazine that writes about everything that I was freelancing about, whether it be fashion or
I love
sports,
that. Yeah.
food, art, tech. Like in our magazine there's different sections that we write about, and because I had that real well-rounded freelancing for like a year and a half, almost 2 years, I could really take that experience and put it to my new job because I
Right.
I am such a well-rounded writer now.
Yeah. I will say to your point with when you said that Billboard became your identity, it doesn't help
Mm,
that, and I hope this didn't happen for you, but
mm,
I've experienced it where I was associated with a big name company in the industry. And then it's like when you're no longer
mm,
associated with that, people start treating you different. And it's like, what? Like you only
mm-hmm.
liked me because I was there? It's like, what about me?
Yep.
So that can be like very mind boggling. And I think it's like in those times that you realize, like, no, I am enough. And what is for me will come. And who is supposed to be my tribe?
Mm,
Who is supposed to, I guess, be my community, they'll appear when it's time.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question with the work and lifestyle and yeah, work. What has been the latest conversation or latest business conversation that has been resonating with you?
Yeah, so it's a bit of business and personal because, I still want to, maintain like a little bit of obscurity, especially, me representing modern
Hmm.
nation, rock nation and modern love story.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say, yeah, I would say, so DJ Fade, he's one of my close friends, and he's been my one of my biggest supporters since even when I was at Billboard. And I keep mentioning burnout and like trying to like have that work life balance. And we had a conversation the other day, and I don't remember when exactly it was, but it was
Hmm.
fairly recent. And um, he just like assured me that I'm in this industry for a reason, and like I shouldn't forget the purpose that I have in, you know, being a writer and like helping people tell their stories. And he just like reminded me that I work too hard to give up.
Mm.
And yeah, it was just like it was a conversation that I needed so badly. And mind you, it was just a regular, us catching up, but
Yeah.
he knew that I've been struggling with like that work life balance and just like getting overwhelmed. And he just like he gave me such like he like reminded me of my strength, and he like just gave me such a confidence boost
Hmm.
that I really needed at the time. So like I told him in the conversation, but if he's listening, like I was just so appreciative of him being, like I said, it goes back to that support system. And him seeing clearly my purpose more than I could see it at the time,
Yeah.
which is, which was just so enlightening, and I appreciate him so much.
I love that. It's so crucial to have, like, I guess, like whoever we keep in our circle, that they, really do
Hmm.
uplift us in times of need. Because when they say be careful who's in your ear, like, God forbid, what if he were to,
Yeah.
if he wasn't a believer and he said,
Hmm.
no, like that's why you need to quit and be regular, or I don't know, some crap where it's just like, I really need
Yeah,
you
yeah,
to inspire me and water me right now. And so, yeah, I love
exactly.
that.
That's what he did. Yeah.
I love that. For favorite topic, culture and just,
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
Jamaica means to both of us. How would you say being Jamaican in America has helped shaped you, and how you show up
Mhm.
in your personal life and your workspace?
Yeah, my favorite
Yeah.
topic. And like you mentioned, being prideful, that's like the biggest thing. Like
Yeah.
anytime, it doesn't even matter who I'm speaking to or what the conversation is about. I
Hmm.
always say like I'm Jamaican. Like
Mm.
that just happens to just fall out my mouth every time I
Hmm.
speak to somebody. Um, yeah, like our culture is just so rich and beautiful. I
Mm.
know everyone, loves us for our music, but we have such great, artists, like visual artists. We
Yeah.
have, great people in sports, business. There's just, I feel like everyone in Jamaica, whether big or small, there's some type of talent that they have,
Yeah.
whether they know it or not. And I feel like it's just so beautiful just to be part of a country that has inspired people in the mainstream sense, whether it's in America or just even the world. Like Jamaica's impact on the world for being such a tiny island
It's
in the
right.
middle of the
Look at what Watalawa.
Caribbean Sea. It's just like
Right.
exactly like it's so inspiring, and I feel like a lot of us carry that like hustle mentality and that ambitious spirit. And I feel it in everything that I do, and that ambition is, what's helped me in my career.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's being Jamaican is like it's the best thing in the
Right.
world.
Being unapologetic, being loud when we need
Yeah.
to turn it up a notch,
Hmm.
just and when you said
Exactly.
everybody is so talented, I just came back from there in August, and where was I? I think I was in Ochi for a little bit before I went back to Kingston, but I was just like, I feel everyone has so much pride in themselves and they take pride in what they do. If they're
Mm.
painting,
Yeah.
the wall on a house, to selling, I don't know, coconut drops on the road, to,
Mm.
being a big business person, it's like I take pride in what I do. And so I feel that makes either foreigners or just people there on the island respect you from jump. Like, oh, okay, this person is serious about what they do. And
Exactly.
so I give them that respect. So I love that. Do you feel
Mm.
any pressure in creating the life that you want?
Yeah, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So it's
But you're
like
doing
you
it
constantly
well.
have to like, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just feel like, and this is also a thing that I had to learn too, because I used to, and this was actually part of a conversation that I had with makeup artist Sir John. He was previously
Hmm.
Beyonce's makeup artist, and Zaya. He worked for Margot Robbie, and like I interviewed him for our style issue in October,
Hmm.
and it was such a beautiful conversation. And I remember telling him like I used to walk in fear because I didn't want to take
Mm.
any chances or any risk with my career, and
Mm.
now like I use that fear as my fuel. Like anytime I'm feeling hesitant
Ooh.
or not wanting to do something, I know that the reason why I'm feeling that is because it's meant to happen. Like it's meant
Oh,
for me, and I just need to like
I
hone
love
in
that.
and really like step in. Yeah, like step into a new environment, step into a new opportunity, and just like take it all in, whether it fails or not. Like at
Hmm.
least like I could say that I tried. So I think having like turning my fear into like fuel has been really helpful in like understanding what type of life I want to lead, whether it's professionally or personally. Yeah, so and also like I said, I am the eldest grandchild, the first grandchild, so it's
Mm.
also that pressure of like wanting to set an example for my cousins, my little
Hmm.
brother,
Hmm.
my parents, my grandparents, just making sure that like I'm I'm carrying or I'm beginning to build like a legacy for like our new generation of family members. So yeah, there's pressure all the
Yeah.
time.
I feel so like you. I'm the oldest for my dad's children. I'm the oldest and the only girl, and it's a total of seven boys. I feel like I have a
Oh
love
wow.
hate I know. I feel like I have a love hate relationship with that. Be careful what you do because they're watching. And I
Mm,
think, I mean, thank God I don't have any sisters. I would love to have a daughter or daughters, but I don't have that much pressure
mm,
with them watching because it's like, oh, I'm a girl. You all are boys. So I'm in my own lane, in my own world. But how I would love to know how you feel about it. But when you say the pressure of, they're watching, I feel like there's such a fine line
mm,
between,
mm,
yes, they're watching, but I'm going to do me. So what I may do
mm.
may not always be deemed as the right thing to do, but I'm being true to myself regardless. So do you feel like that where it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like I said, I grew up being a people pleaser, and I always wanted
Mhm.
to like make sure I'm making my parents happy, like doing whatever they deem necessary, like for my career. Like when I first told my parents I wanted to be a writer, they're like, "What the? How are you gonna make money off of that?"
Yeah, yeah.
Like they, as Caribbean people, I just think in the Black diaspora as a whole, we're always taught like, oh, we have to be an engineer or a doctor or a
Mhm.
lawyer, and there's so many other career choices that we're interested in. So it started from when I was a kid, just like making sure that I did everything to like please my parents. But
Mhm.
they now, as we're all adults now, and they understand that I walk to the beat of my own drum.
Yeah.
Uh, and like they know like I would go to them for advice for
Mhm.
anything. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to do what they tell me to do. I
Right.
would always respect their opinion. But they also respect me now that I'm older, that I'm gonna do things a certain way.
Mhm.
So yeah, just like having that like open communication, with your parents. I know not everyone has a close relationship with their parents, but if you do, I would just encourage you to like just have that um conversation and be like, "Hey, I love and appreciate what you did for me, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna walk the same path that you did.
Yeah.
I just want to have your support." So I think that's
Mm.
a very important distinction.
Oh, I feel like my heart is crying with that because
Aw.
I will say specifically with my dad sometimes, I don't know if it's just a universal father-daughter thing sometimes or it's just a Caribbean
Mm,
thing or a black thing, I don't know. But I feel there have been many times that me and him would butt heads and his reasoning would be,
mm,
well, you're young, no nothing as yet. And it's like, well, you're parenting me and you're giving
yep.
me a lot of wisdom and knowledge. So take into account that you are wising me up and I'm grooming and cultivating my voice. So when I push back on you, it's not to rebel just to rebel. It's me exercising, what I think, how I feel, and how, is what feels
Mm,
natural to me. And when you said you're not asking for them to always agree with you, but for them to have your support, I think that is so
mm,
key. And for all the parents out there listening, or future mother or father, future mother or father to be, it's like it feels so good from a child's perspective to have just the parents support. It's like in a sense of
yeah.
showing like you
It's not
understand.
like yeah, because I feel like as millennials, like even, Gen X, like they grew up with their parents be like, "Well, I told you so because I said so."
Hmm.
And they
Hmm.
never gave an answer. They never gave anything beyond that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's so important for us as millennials and for Gen Z just like really break those generational trauma bonds and like just listen to your kids. Like they are
Yeah.
people. Like I feel like that's like the distinction because now, that I'm older, like I of course like I look at my mom as my mommy, but like I look at
Hmm.
her as a person. And I
Mm.
think making that distinction just like really it saves you a lot of money in therapy, let me tell you that, because it's like you just
Mm.
understand the reasons why your parents acted the way that they did because they were figuring it out just as we are. But
Right.
I think at the time they also had pressures of making sure they fit the mold of what their parents did and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
So now and that's the reason why it was because I told you so or so it's like now that we're the new adults, we have to understand that you know, give our parents some grace, but also you don't have to listen to them all the time.
That
They don't
part.
know everything because they're still learning as much as
Yeah.
we are.
I would love for it to be an equal exchange. Like, I give you grace, you give me grace, and not just, oh, I give you grace because I
Exactly.
understand. And because sometimes I find too that there's this thing where it's like, the younger generation, we are being more understanding of, oh, our parents, the hardships they may have had, or them immigrating over into a new foreign country. But it's like,
Mm,
are you guys gonna develop your thinking further and understand where we're coming from, or are you just gonna stay
mm,
stuck, and then it's on us to give you grace,
exactly. Yeah, we can't carry the burden alone. Like it has to be a
that.
two-way street. Like they also have to do the same work that we are.
Right. Let's move on to the fun stuff.
Mm.
What would you say is your favorite,
Yeah.
just if the chef was there right in front of you, what would you tell him or her your favorite Jamaican meal is?
Oh, I already know. Anyone who knows me knows I have curry running through my veins at this very
Really?
moment.
Okay.
So yeah. So I always say if I mean, God forbid it doesn't happen. If I'm ever like I need that last meal,
Hmm.
it'll be curry chicken with white rice and
Oh
plantain and
God.
a ice cold glass of ting on the side.
Oh
Like that's like
yes.
my ideal meal. So like anytime like I'm coming home from like a trip or
Hmm.
if I wasn't in the best of moods, like my parents, so the to me, the best people who could make curry chicken is my grandpa and my dad.
Okay.
And they knew like anytime Bianca was coming home, like it was like a welcome home meal. Or if
I
I'm
love
feeling kind
that.
of bummy, they would make that for me, just like with my spirits. So yeah, curry chicken. That's my thing.
Wow. Let me think if I'll say by default, Kalaloo and dumpling. kalaloo and dumpling. My mom would be
Mm.
like, "Oh, that would be too much carbs," but if I can add some yam to that, it's like after that, I would say
Ooh, yeah.
oxtail. Yeah, the gungo peas and rice, as you said, the plantain.
Mm.
It's like this
I hear
is,
you.
super vibes. This is not on there, but it just, as we're speaking on food, do you have a favorite flavor of
Yeah.
the I'm trying to, I think it's D&G of the sodas, like
Oh,
the
the sodas?
cream, yeah, the
Oh, pineapple.
pineapple. Really pineapple?
Pineapple is my
Okay.
favorite.
Okay.
Mhm.
What is
Yeah.
mine? I think I go
Wait,
for the
what's
cream.
yours?
I think it's cream and then the
Mm.
cola
My mom
champagne.
likes the cream.
My God. I feel like I
Ooh,
need to
yeah.
get some after
Classic.
this.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
I know
What
you're
would you
making me
say?
hungry.
Right? What would you say is your favorite, or what is your life motto that you go by or live by?
My life motto. I have to think about this. What would be my life motto? Um, I guess like don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself. Like
Just
I'm
try.
just thinking off the top of the dome. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just try.
Yeah.
Like I said, I lived in fear so long, but it's like you have to try. Unless
Mm,
you would never know what the outcome is gonna be.
yeah.
So yeah, try. In the words of my one of my favorite artists, Aaliyah, like dust yourself off and try again.
That part. Shout out to Aaliyah. Rest in peace. What's your, let's see. Do you prefer to eat out or cook in?
um, Eat out. I can cook,
Okay.
but
Hmm.
I don't like to cook. Like
Okay.
I have to be in the mood to be in the
Yeah.
kitchen. But the thing is, I'm such a foodie, so like I love trying new restaurants. Like that's
Hmm.
like my jam. So if there's like a new restaurant opening or if there's a certain chef who like I really admire, like I just want to try new food.
Hmm.
And I'm very adventurous with my food too. I'm not really that picky. So yeah, definitely eating out.
What was your favorite meal slash snack that you had when you were in Paris?
My favorite meal. Um, Trying to think. So it's not, mentioned a snack, and I'm thinking of like, so they're so great with their pastries. And there
Oh God,
was
yeah.
a peach pastry. It was like, it's like a tart, and there was
Mm-hmm.
like peaches, but it was like glazed, and I don't know if it was like glazed over with honey or some type of
Oof.
simple syrup, like an
Mm-hmm.
orangey type of syrup, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like,
Like a
and it
marmalade
the thing
ish.
is it sounds, yeah, it sounds sweet, but it's like they understand the balance of flavors, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
so juicy and fresh, and the
Mm.
tart, like the actual pastry was like so crisp, and mm, that was really good. So not a meal, but like a pastry, because
Yeah.
I they're so known for like all their tarts and croissants and all of that. So
All the
so
carbs that I
yummy.
need in my life.
Yeah.
What would you say, or what would one of your siblings say, is your weirdest habit?
Ugh, my weirdest habit. I am definitely a weirdo. I have no shame in it, and my
Me either.
family knows this.
I'm a big weirdo here.
Yeah, I'm very strange. I'm a strange person. I would say my weirdest habit. I break out in like random like voices and like songs sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like say like we're having a regular conversation,
Uh-huh.
and like we're talking about like Jamaica, for example. Like I'll
Yeah.
randomly blurt out like a popcorn lyric, and I'm just like, where did this come from?
All right.
So yeah, so it's like so it's like I just break out and just like
I love it. Yeah.
random like noises, sounds, like lyrics. Yeah,
I
just comes
get
out of me. I don't know.
it. Last question. What would you say, or what would you say to your future self right now? And what do you feel your future self is saying back to you?
Yeah. Um, I think what my future self is saying back to me is like, you're gonna be okay, because
Mm-hmm.
I question myself so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything that I do, I'm like, oh, like is this the right thing? Like I don't know what direction I'm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
taking. And like you said, the pressure of like creating the life for myself. I think my future self would be like, hey, like you got this. Like
You got it. Yeah.
you're working, you're on the right path. Um, and like what I would say to my future self, that was the
Mm-hmm.
other one.
Or sorry, what
What I would say
your
to my
your
future
future
self.
self to what you would say now to your future self.
What would I say now? I hope you're living the life that you deserve, like a life of
Mm,
like peace.
yeah.
Because I want to work hard enough to where my future self could just like enjoy herself, like just travel,
Mm-hmm.
God willing, with the love of her life, and just like not feel stagnant or feel so committed to her career.
Yeah.
So I want my future self to have that leniency and just like do whatever she wants, like not
Yeah.
having to answer to anybody and just like living a life of travel and eating good food and just
Living her
luxury,
best life.
soft life,
Yeah.
soft girl life.
Is that
Yeah.
right? I love it. Bianca, thank you so much for joining me on
Thank you.
this. We're recording this on a Sunday, but thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for sharing. I feel like when you were speaking, it's like I felt like I was traveling as you were going through all the steps and
Oh,
like, the curves, the dips, the ascensions of your career
thank
and just
you.
I just want to, as an admirer of just how you're moving and also being a Caribbean girl, it's like keep going, doing amazing,
Yeah.
and I'm
Thank
proud
you
of
so
you.
much. Thank you. Yeah, this means a lot. Like I said, like I love looking back at my past and my career because it reminds me like how much I've done, especially as a Caribbean woman. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important, for us to always tell our stories and also support each other. So I'm definitely
Mm-hmm.
appreciative of you having me on here as
You're
well.
so
So
welcome. You're so welcome.